Well, it happened. I started the Epic Games launcher, which I hadn't touched since the release of Borderlands 3, and lo and behold I discovered this promising game called Mortal Shell. According to its website, Mortal Shell is a merciless and challenging action role-playing game with strategic, deliberate and unforgiving combat. Developed by Cold Symmetry, a small studio composed of AAA veterans, which is known for developing this game. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Some of you might say, oh, another Souls-like game, and if I would want to simplify matters, I would say the same, but there seems to be a whole lot more to this game. Well, okay, the story, if you can call it such, is the typical end-of-world remnants of humanity setting. Basically, the whole world has gone to shit, everything is twisted in one way or another, and monsters and crazy people trying to kill your character roam the game world. You start the game by taking control of a husk-like figure emerging from shallow waters while ominous music plays. The atmosphere conveyed by imagery and music fits the scenario previously described. An aura of the unknown is surrounding everything. Even items you pick up at first do not reveal much about their purpose. Only frequent use unlocks their mysteries. Your character wades through decrepit ruins, following the way lit by torches. Shortly after awakening from your slumber, you are introduced to one of the key combat mechanics, namely Harden. Harden is on a cooldown and makes you immune to incoming damage for a brief period of time, but renders you unable to attack unless you cancel the ability. Once you are familiarized with one of the defensive layers of the game, you acquire your first weapon, a longsword. Harden can be woven into your attacks, which consist of light and heavy attacks. Your first weapon, a longsword, lets you attack 3 times, and you can alternate between light and heavy swings for effective combos with different attack timings. As far as I know, only light attacks can be cancelled by dodging, rolling, whereas heavy swings force you to commit to the attack. Armed with your sword and your knowledge about the defensive ability Harden, you are tasked to fight your first shell, which is one of the major gameplay elements of said game. Shells are basically classes you can swap to at any point in the game. You do not start the game as a certain class, but as the aforementioned husk-like entity able to possess the shells of fallen warriors. While you do lose your first fight, it is unwinnable. Trust me, I've tried. A bell tolls, which summons a giant fish, swallowing you whole, and you end up in the actual first level of the game. The first level, the outskirts of Fulgrim. A small foresty area with many passages to traverse and enemies to fight. The area is definitely small compared to any Dark Souls game, but the enemy placement and variety is decent and somewhat challenging, and there's even a secret area with a mini-boss and some lore. At the start of this area, you receive your first shell, a knight-like character with the ability to parry incoming blows. Given you have built up enough of a resource called Resolve by attacking enough, you can follow up with a powerful riposte attack, which heals you for a sizable amount of your HP. The first area also introduces you to one NPC called Vlas, which I suppose is going to be some sort of wandering merchant in the game. Killing your first enemies, you might have noticed that you were receiving tar rather frequently, and glimpse would have been awarded to you by the more challenging enemies. Talking to Vlas, you realize that tar seems to be the more common currency in the game for buying your everyday items, like items with regenerative effects. The next area you uncover is called the Abandoned Chamber, a maze-like crypt housing all manner of ghastly monsters. This is also where the difficulty of the game slightly ramps up. At the start of the area, you are introduced to Sester Genessa. Well, I'm going to say it, your Firekeeper character from Dark Souls. She gifts you an item, a mask to be specific, which lets you teleport to her location, losing all tar in the process. Anyway, with that out of the way, Genessa finally unravels the mystery of how to upgrade your character. For a small fee of tar and the aforementioned rare resource glimpse, Sester Genessa helps you reveal the name of your shell, which was up to that point unknown to you. Meaning you can upgrade your shell's abilities now. The first shell you are inhabiting is called Vlas the Vassal, and is your average life-based, more defense-focused character, whereas Teal the Acolyte, which you encounter in the abandoned chamber, is the stamina-focused roguelike character. Spending resources to upgrade your shell's abilities not only nets you their abilities, but also provides you with the shell's background story, which is told via voiced monologues. The second area also introduces a crafting and upgrade system of your weapons and items, which is definitely a most welcome addition to the game. On a personal note, the combat somewhat felt clunky and I died a couple of times getting stuck on objects or getting boxed in by enemies in small corridors, mostly in the second level. There might be an argument to this being a key part of the gameplay and planning ahead and choosing your combat arena wisely. But still, if most of the level consists of tight corridors, this feels rather like a cheap tactic to add difficulty than to make the game challenging but also fair. The rest of the gameplay loop did not feel unfair. Most of my deaths were your typical let me get one more hit in scenarios and could have easily been avoided by exercising patience. The combat and especially its animations unfortunately lack weight, sometimes producing the feeling of your character just floating around and not in a manner of float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Graphically, the game looks decent, nothing breathtaking so far, but since it is powered by Unreal Engine 4 it does not look dated either. So far I have not seen any over-the-top particle effects, which might come later with magic, but overall Unreal Engine 4 helps to emphasize the game's dark atmosphere. To close this out, keep in mind these are just my impressions of the game's beta, meaning the game could get better until its release. All in all, the game looks to be very promising. If you are into action RPGs, I urge you to check out the beta on the Epic Games launcher and look out for the game to be released somewhere in Q3 of 2020. Thank you so much for sticking with me till the end. I hope you liked what you saw. If so, why not leave a thumbs up on the video and consider subscribing. And if you have any thoughts or constructive criticism concerning this video, leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. Until then, thanks again for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.